Money Mike has done it again, folks. Florida State Seminoles landed the number 4 transfer in the country in Jaheim Bell, and Dave and I are here to talk about it on today's edition of Locked On Seminoles. Dave, let's ride.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. This episode of Locked On Seminoles is brought to you by our friends and our title sponsor over at Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchup between the FSU Seminoles and the USC Upstate Spartans right here on Sling. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it now, today. David, what's going on, my guy?
It's a great day. Great day, Drake. You know why it's a great day?
Why is that?
Drake, it's a great day because we are still practicing for a bowl game, which Miami is not. I can't imagine not playing in a bowl game this year, Drake.
I cannot imagine it either. But we got more important things to talk about about basically, teams that shouldn't be on our mind anymore, and that is the commitment of one Mr. Jaheim Bell, a former top 100 high school prospect, formerly from South Carolina. Dave, this is a big get. Also, it's a necessary get at a position that we highlighted before the offseason started that we needed more bodies in.
Yeah. Drake, that position, I think we thought before the year, we trusted that it was going to need to be the Cam McDonald show. I think you saw flashes on plays of what the offense could be when Cam McDonald is an effective receiving threat. But there was no consistency at the position this year. We were using Marcuston Douglas on an awful lot of screens, and it was bizarrely effective, which tells me that this coaching staff can draw up a tight end player too, which should make you really excited about Jaheim Bell. And let me tell you why, Drake. And I'll need you to talk more about this because all I have to go off is PFF grades here. But of all the receivers, of all the players that were involved in the receiving game for South Carolina this past year, who received at least 25 targets, you're looking at South Carolina's second highest graded receiving player. So Jaheim Bell's receiving grade this year was 76.7. That is high. The dude can catch the football. He is a receiving threat at tight end. He is not going to be a blocking tight end. Don't go look at his blocking grades because, just don't. But in terms of the receiving game, he seems to be exactly what this offense has been missing in a tight end, which is somebody who consistently you could send out on routes and is a threat to catch the football and run after the catch specifically. That's another thing he's very good at. So imagine this offense where there's a tight end on the field and you have to account for him. That's going to make this offense more multidimensional next year, especially with the run game coming back in its entirety, especially with the receiving game coming back in its entirety. Most of the offensive line, the quarterback, the continuity on this offense is incredible. So add a receiving tight end to this year's offense, except a little better anyways, because they're all coming back. And you can imagine what that looks like.
This is something that Mike Norvell has been trying to add and implement to his offense as he got here. He used to love using a lot of two tight end sets actually over at Memphis to kind of scheme them up, scheme them open, also allow players like a DeMonte Coxie probably also get open on the open field and also help out with maybe, Antonio Gibson's a player that we've talked about a lot on this show as he's a very athletic back, but he's also a bigger back. Jaheim Bell could be someone that if you look at it, how Antonio Gibson was used, is a very similar skill set in the fact that Jaheim Bell is extremely athletic, extremely fleet of foot, and someone who's very agile. And he's a big kid. I think he's listed at 6'3", 232 pounds per South Carolina's website. And then I'd ask a few friends of mine who were the ones told us about Jamie Robinson and Jasmine Turrentine as well, Kier Thomas from South Carolina, hashtag the Bower Dogs over there, letting me know that overall he is what I have right here. He's an athletic freak, which is how he ended up being a running back after running back 1 and 2 went down. Did have a few drops during the season, but makes a lot more plays than he misses. Also, to Dave's point too, We didn't use him as much as a blocker, probably one of the weaker parts of his game, but he's in pretty insanely fast for his size. And the way he will be used as more of a wide receiver and tight end hybrid because he has great hands, solid routes, solid run blocking, aside from the pass blocking Dave was just mentioning. And then basically here's a quintessential tight end. And if you want this offense to take the next step next season, you need to have more options besides your wide receivers. You need everyone to be able to eat on a consistent basis. That was the problem with the tight end room this year. It wasn't hitting or being effective on a consistent basis. And that's why this get is massive for this team.
Yeah, you're right. What you said about Mike Norvell, he prefers to use tight ends. If you go look back at his offense at Memphis, he knows how to use tight ends and to do so effectively and to open up the rest of the offense. That's the thing to me is when you have all of these different capable layers to the offense, it gives the defense more that they have to worry about on a play to play basis. It makes you less predictable and thus it makes you more dangerous. So for an offense that was already relatively weak, if not devoid, for parts of the year at the tight end position, so that when they were on the field, you didn't have to worry too much about them. I think that's going to change the offense a lot more than people probably think it will. And there's a reason it's such a big deal that Florida State lands the number one ranked transfer tight end. That's going to make this team and this offense better, and an offense that was already one of the 10 best in the country. Yes, Jaheim Bell, please welcome to this fold. I absolutely cannot wait to see what it looks like when you have tight ends running open in the middle of the field and can run after the catch. That's something we haven't had in a few years, Drake. And they brought in didn't they bring in Nick O'Leary this past weekend to
It,
meet with.
I think they did, yeah.
Yeah, they brought in the big guns because clearly they saw the tape on this kid and he can be impactful in this offense. So the what do we say about these transfers? We need impact players to be replacing some of these scholarship spots from the kids that are departing through the transfer portal. This is a big upgrade in the receiving room, and that's exactly what we said this coaching staff needs to be doing. A plus again.
Now, hopefully, we still land the other kid, aka Baby Gronk. That's the Kyle Morlock kid, the FCS transfer from Shorter University. The main reason why I think he's so attractive is because of his size, right? He's 6'7", 250 pounds. Just imagining you have Kyle Morlock, you got Jaheim Bell, then you also have Marcus and Douglas. Those are just all three dynamic pieces. And then also, now as a defensive coordinator, you kind of have to ask yourself, who are you going to double team? Are you going to double team Johnny? Are you going to double team Micah? Or double team Winston Wright Jr., who's coming back from injury, Jaheim Bell. Right now, the possibilities are endless, and now you basically have a Swiss Army knife on your offense. And quite frankly, Dave, it's a great time to be a Florida State Seminole.
It really is, Drake. And I think it's a great time for you to tell the folks about something else great that they should have in their lives, please.
Well, there's nothing better, nothing greater than our talent sponsors, our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Folks, Omaha Steaks is just delicious. And also, they're insane at this point. Omaha Steaks has cut their prices 50% site wide to make you the gift giving hero that you always wanted to be. Last minute shopping, head over to Omaha Steaks. The holidays are here. Achieving great gifting greatness when you give the gift of perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks has put together a delicious selection of various gift packages, including their burgers, their filet mignon, their air chilled boneless chicken, ultra juicy burgers, and the like for you over at Omaha Steaks. So go to omahasteaks.com and take advantage of 50% off site wide. Plus, use code locked on LOCKEDON at checkout to get an additional 40% off your order. Remember, folks, minimum order may be required, but visit omahasteaks.com today. Take advantage of 50% off site wide. Plus, use promo code locked on LOCKEDON at checkout to get the extra 40% off of your order. And folks, let's get thick this holiday season with our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Okay, Dave, we're back. We're rocking and rolling here on Locked On Seminoles. And folks, thank you guys so much for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every single day. Now, David, where do you want to go with the next part? I know we got some recruiting stuff to talk about a little bit, but some players came in last week. You have more players coming in this week. Where do you want to run with this?
Yeah, I guess we have more recruiting to talk, Drake. I think you alluded to something. I don't think we're done at the tight end position, which I think is interesting because, like you said, Mike Norvell enjoyed 2 tight end sets, at Memphis and hasn't had that luxury thus far at Florida State, but I think you're right that we're not done yet at the tight end position in the transfer portal. With all these players coming back, it's kinda changed the needs of this team a little bit. Um, well, we have some pieces left to see if they're coming back on the defensive line, but, um, I think so far you don't have as much to replace on this roster as you probably thought, right? S
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like you're right about that. Like, there's a lot of players that are coming back, but there's a lot of players that confirm that aren't going anywhere, which is equally as good. Shout out to the Bowels End over there. But overall, to me, you definitely do need to grab, I think, another tight end. You want to have at least two in that room because Brian Courtney is still learning. Jackson West, I think he's still been injured, but he's still coming back. He'll be back. Marcus Douglas seems like a great find, but one thing about Marcus Douglas at that size, he particularly wasn't that great at blocking last year. There was actually at times where if you watch X's and O's, he misses on the block. So I think you're right with the two tight ends, that type of thing. But there's also other players that coming in a position of need, whether it be the defensive backfield. And all Conrad Hussey, the safety commit for Penn State, was in town. The linebacker Cameron Robinson, where I thought we were done with linebackers in the high school ranks, but he showed up out of nowhere. And then you have the one player that is a lot of people's minds, even though I still think he's going to Miami. You have Miami legacy, Mr. Ruben Bain, a defensive lineman, top 100 kid, number 73 overall in the country per 247 Sports Composite. There's a lot of kids coming in that came in town last weekend, and you have even more coming in this next weekend. That while most of them are already committed, there are some kids in that are coming in that basically want to feel out the culture, and that's like Christopher Otto, the tackle from Key West, and then you have Keyshawn Blackstock, the interior offensive lineman from the JUCO ranks.
Right. So I guess what I was getting at is I think you could be a little more discerning with the portal at this point. I think you could splurge for a few more luxuries, I guess is what I was getting at. You still have holes you'll need to fill. Like for example, the defensive line and offensive line, I think every single year you need to add to it through the transfer portal. You should. Just if you're adding quality depth that's going to compete for playing time at either of those spots, defensive line or offensive line, you have to do it. So I'm still expecting to take some players, at least one at each of those positions, probably two on the defensive line, one inside, one out. But aside from that, like you said, yeah, go get me a DB. I don't know, maybe if an excellent linebacker shows up in the portal, I wouldn't mind that, but I think you can be a little more selective and a little more, I don't know, just the right guy happens to fall into your lap. Maybe you don't need anyone at that position, like a receiver, for example. If some like excellent receiver just really wants to come to Florida State, you don't have to say no. I think we have room for that at this point with how many players have departed in the transfer portal. And that's a luxury this team hasn't had in a while because we've just been so desperately trying to fill positions of need, which has been almost every position now for several years. So that's indicative of where this program is. It's not that we have a complete roster yet. We don't. We still need to infuse talent into this roster to compete with like the Clemsons of the world, who I do think we're going to compete with next year. But it's we're working on the margins now. So uh, it's going to be very interesting to see how this coaching staff fills out the remainder of this class because the needs aren't as great, I don't think, at this point as the wants, and that's a unique position to be in.
I'm about to say, I mean, that's very true, and like, I kind of agree with you. I think defensive back wise, I would like to see a little more play, kind of in the transfer portal, like see what we're making plays at. I think Fentrell Cypress at UVA defensive back, I do know that I do believe he's checking out Clemson, and that's a team that, quite frankly, did struggle immensely in the secondary this past season. You don't have AJ Terrell back there, nor I want to say I think Tywone Mullins, his brother, I think Trayvon Mullins, that's the name of the former Clemson defensive back. So I would love to see him actually come to Florida State. And then also overall, like I think where the wants are greater than needs, I think that's a better way to put it because like now you're stockpiling talent at this point. And that's something that we've seen with transfer portal overall that I was of the belief that I think you can still build solid teams through the portal and then not completely derelicting your duties in the high school ranks. And now you're kind of seeing the staff with now that you're finally having the proof of concept with the nine wins, the business heads up for 10 wins. Now it looks like you're able to supplement the two, especially with early signing day sometime, I think, later this week. and then transfer portal for this cycle closing on January 18th.
Yeah, that's right, Drake. I said to you and Max yesterday that every now and then and I think a lot of you guys out there listening probably get upset when you hear like that Florida or Miami's in it for this 5-star or they landed this 4-star and like why aren't we landing these 5 stars? It feels an awful lot like what Mike Norvell is doing through recruiting and development of the players on this roster is really cohesive and intentional and calculated. Whereas it feels a lot like, especially more so Miami than Florida, but still both of them, I think, are taking the best of what they can get rather than like plugging puzzle pieces into a puzzle. Um, I, I couldn't be more pleased with the spot we're in right now. Being able to be so methodical about this process and just supplement the talent on this roster to make it even better next year. That's the place we're in, Drake. It's a great place to be in. And I think there's another great place to be in that you need to tell our listeners about now, right?
Yeah, and that's our friends over at Built.com, aka the goats developing the Built Bars, whether Built Bar Puffs, Built Bars Toppers, folks. You gotta try some of these because I'm talking about Built Bars' new reimagined flavors, whether it be the cookie dough topper, the coconut brownie bar, or the coconut brownie topper. And also, they have a white chocolate peppermint granola for the holidays. It's Built's take on a granola bar that's more filling and still insanely tasty. And also, the candy cane brownie puff. Dave is a huge fan of the puffs because Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. But if you like those flavors, there are 17 other delicious flavors to choose from. As you know, Dave is the cookie dough connoisseur, and your boy is the cherry Barcia Casanova. So head on over to built.com today. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15, and you'll get 15% off of your order at built.com today because it's great. Let's get healthy together, folks. Promo code LOCKEDON15, LOCKEDON15. Built, you got to try this. Okay, Dave, I'm
Mhm.
going to hand the ball off to you. We don't have anything scheduled for this last segment. I want you to go right off the cuff, right off the rip. What do you want to end the show on today?
Well, first of all, thank you each and every one of you for being here to listen. Just wanted to get this out of the way. Wow, Miami's bad at football. Yeah, it's pretty bad down there. So feels good. But no, seriously. What I want to talk about is this. Drake, what does the rest of this class look like in terms of the split between high school and transfers? Because we've been having this internal debate lately amongst ourselves about can you build a championship roster through the transfer portal? There seems to be a narrative out there that that's not something you can do. That you use the transfer portal like we've been using it to just fill holes and get back to like a place of respectability, basically, and like competency. But can you build a championship contending team through the transfer portal? So I say all that to say, is the rest of this class, the rest of this recruiting class, basically us hitting the transfer portal to fill up to 85 scholarships, or is this coaching staff, as far as you're concerned, still focused on high school recruiting at various spots for the roster?
I think that, like, I think to me, if you look at the way their class is kind of set up, I mean, you obviously have your true 5 stars, regardless of where they are, where they're from. Example being Hakeem Williams, the number one kid in your class, and you have Keldrick Falk, a top 100 kid, and then Lucas Simmons. So for the elite of the elite that want to be here, also the elite that kind of connect more with Mike Norvell and staff, because we have seen that his message doesn't resonate as well with high schoolers as it does with people in the transport, kids in the transport portal, then that's definitely the type of thing. So to me, I would personally would say that I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone could do the math for me on this because I'm terrible at math, but maybe like an 18 kind of 10 kind of split when it comes to transfer portal and high school being the 18, transfer being the 10. I think that's what we saw last season. So to me, the way Mike Neville kind of constructs it is like I think a third of the kids are transfers, and that's mainly because one, they kind of, while it might be a shorter kind of a career here, you're seeing now a lot of the younger kids kind of also hit the portal too, where they have maybe 2 or even 3 years of eligibility remaining. So to me, I think it goes more towards the culture fit that he likes to see, the kind of kids that he wants to see as well. And so I think 18 and 10, so a third of the class overall recruiting wise will be transfers because quite honestly, his message just resonates better with them because I think it's more of the bluntness and also they're doing the second place finish from the high school kids recruiting. They already have the relationship before, and maybe it's like, hey, you know what, second time around, you knew you wanted to be with us. You didn't end up with us, but now here's your second chance because we're all about second chances here.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's an odd it's something we're still learning about. There's just so little data on this. Whether like for example, high school or transfer recruiting are more reliable, or uh more talent infusing and win adding to a roster long term. So I say that because like I find it odd that we judge transfers as like these secondhand products. Transfers are kids typically removed oftentimes 1 or 2 years from high school whose evaluations are not based on their game against 2A Marist or some crap like that. Like you've seen them play in college. You have college film on them. Like that is more pertinent. You have a better idea of what you're getting and what you can do with this player. So if our coaching staff is watching this film and they're evaluating it and they feel like they know exactly what they're getting and what this kid can do for our team, and they're more confident that in that than a high school player, I have no problem with them choosing the transfer player over that high school player instead. I do, however, wonder if we're gonna have to get back to that place where we're pulling in multiple 4 stars and a couple 5 stars in the high school ranks to get back to that championship level of Florida State football. I think that's a question for another day because I'm not sure of that answer. But our use of the transfer portal right now made this team 9-3, probably could should have been 10-2, very easily could have been 11-1. So primarily the transfer portal is responsible for that record. And if that's the case, I don't see why you can't build an ACC championship team through the transfer portal. I don't see why you can't build a playoff contender through the portal. Whether we win it, that's a different story. I'd be happy just to be there at this point right now and get our feet back in that water. But I do think it's okay for those worried about what we're doing at the high school recruiting level and looking at those rankings. Those rankings shouldn't matter as much to you. And that may feel like cheap and easy to say, but that's the reality. The transfer portal has made this team what it is. And what it is the best team in the state, one of the best in the conference, and one of the 15 best in the country.
I mean, overall, I mean, you're right though. We do need to get back to basically, like, to me, the 3-star and the 4-star things got a little bit more interchangeable when it comes to recruiting services because, like, it's basically, I think the top 32 are the top 32 typically where they are at each single separate outlet, whether it be on 3 rivals or Knowles or 24/7 Sports. The 4 and 3 though, that's kind of where your real bread and butter is made. And also, we do know that Mike Norvell has an extensive background in the Group of 5, where you're relied on more to basically get the most out of your recruits, and also probably have a lot more of an eye for scouting. But eventually, though, you do need to basically go for, you don't always need to find a diamond in the rough, in the top 1,000 kids or stuff like that, right? I mean, there's always a great kid that comes out of there. Like, I know Andre Wadsworth, that was a player that he was a walk-on tight end and walk-on defensive end, and then got converted over to the offensive line. But you don't always need to do that. It's always fine sometimes to go to the top 250, top 300 kids and grab yourself some more 4 stars and the 3 stars. But also, you're right about that, where the transport kind of, takes a blow to that, primarily also because the transfer portal has made high school recruiting a lot more difficult for the kids, because why, like you were just saying, why would you go after an unproven commodity, an unproven player, and a kid from high school, where I have actual film from a kid that
Yeah.
played for 2 seasons at the Power 5 level or even the Group of 5 level. So right now, the transfer portal, as it is, it's changing the way we see recruiting. But like you were saying, that's a discussion for a different day. And folks, hopefully you enjoyed today's show. As always, I am Drake. That was Dave. But please, Dave, I'm not gonna give you the instructions, but let the folks know, what it is that you do.
Everybody, thank you, each and every one of you, for being here every day. I love you. Drake loves you. We all love you, and we need you here. That's why we can do what we do. So we greatly appreciate it. Where to find our podcast? Anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google Play, all the good places. Or the YouTube. Please give this video a like if you liked it, which you should, because we're again talking about Florida State being good at football, and that's fun. If you could, I'd ask that you please subscribe to the channel. It takes 2 seconds. Ding that little bell, turn your notifications on. It'll let you know when our episodes drop, and comment on the video, please. What is your thought? I'm very interested to hear this from our fans on the importance of high school recruiting moving forward. If that's a necessary prerequisite to us being a championship team, or can we do it through the transfer portal? I want to know each of your thoughts, because that seems to be an interesting debate going on in the community right now.
It is a great debate in the community. Sorry I lost my train of thought there, folks, but because I forgot our names. That was Dave. This is Drake, and we'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody.
Don't know.